Welcome back guys. In this particular video, we are going to deal with the power of directional derivatives and its usage in physics. This video is presented to you by mathphysics.edu, and for gaining knowledge about such beautiful topics, please to subscribe my channel. Without further delay, let us begin. What is actually the directional derivatives? Let us consider a very simple situation. What is the situation? The situation is very simple. Suppose you are standing on the first floor of your house, which is at a certain level from the surface of the earth. Means suppose you are living in first floor, you are standing on the first floor, and that is at a certain level upwards from the sea level or the level of the road, you can say. Now assume the earth, that is the road, to be the reference level or zero level. I would prefer to call that the XY plane, because in further diagrams that we are going to see, we are going to consider the horizontal plane as the XY plane. So in addition to reference level or zero level, you can also consider it to be the XY plane. Now when you are already at a height of x1, which is at height of the first floor, the height of the first floor is x1. So you are at a certain height above the road or the reference level. Now it's very obvious at this point that to lower the temperature, we would have to go up from the first floor to second floor to third floor, and it goes on. And to increase the temperature, we would have to go down. As you know, with increase in altitude, the temperature decreases, and with decrease in altitude, the temperature increases. So I am using that particular information to give you an intuitive feeling of what is actually the reason for existence of these directional derivatives. But we have till now considered that if we go from first floor to second floor, the temperature will decrease, and if we go from first floor to ground floor, the temperature will increase. But we have not considered that whether we will fly like a Superman vertically upwards or will use the staircase to go. Which way it will be means appropriate, or you can say feasible for us, or maximum feasibility will be gained if we go. Now you may say, okay, why will I waste my energy? I will go vertically upwards. If I have the power of going vertically upwards, suppose a stair which is going vertically upwards, I will obviously go vertically upwards. Why would I take the stairs which goes winding? And that's the intuitive feeling that I wanted to grow. Yes, you will have to go vertically upwards, because you see, if you consider the plane surfaces to be the floor of each and every subsequent floors, first floor, second floor, third floor, then each and every floors happen to be the planes which cut at some height above the earth's surface, which I am calling the z axis. It is cutting the z axis at some distinct points. So if it is cutting at some distinct points, then the thing that we are going to look at is it is cutting at different points. Okay, now see, but here comes the but. What is the but? The but is in which way we should go. Now the question arises that in which way should we go upwards for maximum or minimum change in required parameter. What is the parameter? The change in temperature. In which way the change in temperature will be maximum. Suppose from a particular point you go vertically upwards and you reach the second floor, and you take up the stairs and you reach another point, but it lies on the same plane. Obviously at that same plane the temperature change will be same, but the rate of change of temperature will not be same, because for going vertically upwards you have taken a shorter path, and for going winding up through the stairs you have taken a longer path. So the rate of change of the parameter, in this particular case it is the temperature, it will be not the same. The rate of change of the parameter will not the same. And we are interested in finding what will be the maximum, or in case the minimum change or no change in required parameter. And the directional derivative precisely answers this. and we will be looking into that in the future slides. Let's begin. Now for that we need to have the concept of level surfaces. Now what does the word level surface signify to you? To me, it signifies that there is some level, and obviously it's a surface. A surface may not be a plane. Surface can be anything. It's a three-dimensional object. It may be sloping like this and this and this, any sort of a shape it can take. Suppose the hill is also a surface, like I have drawn over here. Now, at each and every point you see, for a particular value of z is equal to f of x comma y is equal to constant. For this particular diagram, I have considered the altitude to be constant to make you understand it more clearly. But in place of z, you can take any other parameter. In the previous example, which we were discussing so far, in place of z, we would have put t, because z is proportional to t. So if we go up, we can instead of putting z, we can directly put t. We can calibrate in terms of directly in terms of t. That t is a function of this x, y, z. Then we would have to consider z in the function variable itself. So t is equal to t of x, y, z. Here z is equal to f of x, y. So whatever be the function, if at a certain height or for the certain value of the parameter which we are discussing, if it turns out that the entire equation is equal to a constant, and the equation is a equation of a surface in 3 dimension, then that particular surface for which that parameter is constant, in this case z, we will call it a level surface, as if it is equally leveling each and everything. But the level surface need not be horizontal. Suppose I draw the equipotential surface. It's also a level surface, right? It's also a level surface. But the equipotential surface in 3 dimensions need not be at the same position. Means in the same altitude, it can be at the 0 level, it can be at the highest level at a radius r position. You can think of the sphere of radius r. Is the sphere of radius r have all its points at the same height z? No, obviously not. So that's why we can tell that the level surface can be of any shape, but the fact that the level surface has to satisfy is that we have to give or satisfy the condition that the parameter remains constant throughout the surface. Now any curve which can be drawn on that particular surface is a level curve, or simply a level line. You can say if it is a line, it's a level line, and if it's a curve like this, the circumscribing, I have drawn one for you. Circumscribing curve it's also a level curve, and the surface which I've shaded, it's a level surface. I've drawn 3 level surfaces for you and 3 level curves. Okay. So this is precisely the concept of level surface, where a particular parameter is constant, which is a function of xyz. As xyz changes, it should change, but it happens to be a surface in which it is not changing. It should not change. Like in the Gaussian surface which we draw around a point charge, the potential remains constant on a sphere of radius, let's say r. So that's an equipotential surface. What remains constant? The parameter potential remains constant. If we change xyz, will it change? Obviously it will change if we do not take another point on the level surface. So this is precisely the concept of level surface. Now let's take up a point in 3 dimensions and also take up an arbitrary direction in which we should go. Now in this particular figure, you notice that we have an xyz 3-dimensional axis, and we have taken a point x0, y0, z0, which we have designated as B. Now we will go to A, which is along a unit vector direction. I have written the unit vector for you, A I cap plus B j cap plus C k cap. So this is the unit vector along the direction in which we are aspiring to go. Not necessarily we have to go. I have taken an arbitrary direction out of my own choice. Now let's see what we can do with this. Now using vector law, triangular law of vector addition, AB the arc length is SU, because U is the unit vector and S is the arc length. So the total length will be S times U, and U is 1, so the arc length is S. Now, if we study this picture very clearly, then here you can see that xi cap, yj cap plus zk cap, which is the coordinates of the particular point A in which we are trying to go through that particular line, turns out to be this particular thing: x naught plus s a I cap, y naught plus s b j cap, z naught plus s c k cap. So it's actually a parametric equation of a line which I have derived over here. X equal to x naught plus sa, y is equal to y naught plus sb, z is equal to z naught plus sc. This is the parametric equation of a line in 3 dimensions. It is very simple. Now we see that it just turns out to be a function of one variable. What is that one variable? S, the arc length. As we increase the arc length, we go to some other point. All the other constants x naught, y naught, z naught, a, b, c are our own desired constants. We have taken them to be constant. Then we perform the usual way, we differentiate a single variable function. So we perform the differentiation of a single variable. We know that it's very easy. And since this particular thing, which was initially a function of x, y, z, now parametrically we reduce it to a particular function of single variable s, we can simply differentiate it according to the rules of differentiation of a single variable function. Now let's see. This is precisely what we will get. Study it carefully, pause the video. This is the most important slide. d phi ds, del phi del x dx ds, plus del phi del y dy ds, plus del phi del z dz ds. You may say, sir, why this is so? Why this is so? This is precisely because whenever we are having a function of 3 variables, when we are differentiating them, we have to differentiate with respect to 3 independent variables. Now you may say, okay, we have taken the independent variable to be only s, so why is it not reducing to the original form? Because phi is dependent upon x, y, z, and x, y, z are dependent upon s. So it's a composition of mappings, and what we have written over here is just the chain rule of differentiation. So by the chain rule of differentiation, this comes out to be precisely the d phi ds. Okay. For further knowledge, you may go through Google and search how to manipulate the differentiation of multivariable functions. There you will precisely get how this comes. Now I am not going into that how this comes. I will make a video in the future about this also, no problem. dx ds equal to a, dy ds equal to b, dz ds equal to c. Now how we have got it? Let's go to the previous slides. Okay, this slide. X equal to x naught plus sn. Now dx ds, if we do, x naught is a constant, a is a constant, so precisely this we should get. ds ds becomes 1, dx naught ds becomes 0, so we are left with a. Similarly with y and z, we get b and c respectively. Now d phi ds reduces to this particular equation: del phi del x dot a plus del phi del y dot b plus del phi del z dot c. Right? From the first line we get to the third line using this particular information which we have assumed earlier. Now the most beautiful part of the problem comes now. d phi ds can now be written, you see, in this particular form, where a, b, c was the unit vector that we have initially taken, and d phi dx, d phi dy, d phi dz, we are giving its own character. We called it the grad phi. What is grad phi? Grad phi is precisely a particular vector, and we are getting this vector by acting a differential operator called grad, which is written at the bottom of the page, on a scalar function phi. What is a scalar function phi? A function which only depends on the points on which you are acting, not along the direction. But del phi is a vector operator. It's a vector, you may say. it also depends on xyz and also depends on direction. So it's a, I mean, scalar function we have said previously, this is a vector function. Vector function, and it's a field function you can say, because it depends precisely on xyz. So it's both a vector as well as a field function. Okay, or a field variable you can say. Field variable, field function, both are the same means terminologies, no differences there. Now you have to get acquainted with this particular notation. We are giving del its own life. We are giving del operator its own life. What is the life that we are giving? We are ascribing it to it the properties of a vector. I cap del del x, j cap del del y, k cap del del z. We have written I cap in this direction because otherwise you would have thought it in other way, that I cap is being differentiated with respect to x, which would nothing be but 0, because I cap is a constant in this particular case. In some cases I cap 2 can be varying in rotational frames that we are not discussing right now. But for the simplest case in which we need to understand what is actually this particular grad operator, because grad operator, if you know, you can perform all other operations, divergence, curl, all depends on this particular grad operator. Now students don't understand why it is called a vector, because it turns out to be vector in its own way. It's a symmetry of nature. Nature gives, means have given this thing like this, and we have obtained it in a vector form, so it is ascribed a vector notation. Okay, so I cap del del x plus j cap del del y plus k cap del del z is precisely the del operator, vector differential operator, and del phi is precisely the vector function that we get by acting this particular vector differential operator on a scalar function. And when we dot it with a particular direction, we get d phi ds, which is the directional derivative. We are taking the derivative rate of change of this particular parameter phi in a particular direction which we have assumed previously. Now in particular a, b, c, we can put any other direction and we can find out what will be the cases in that particular thing. Okay. Now in level surfaces, the parameter has constant values. Yes, we have discussed it previously. So that if we traverse tangentially along, z is equal to constant. In our previous slide we have discussed z as the parameter. So z is equal to constant if we take and we traverse along the surface, at each and every point we go tangential to the surface. Means we are not leaving the surface, we go wherever the surface takes us. The d phi ds comes out to be 0. Yes, obviously, why not? Because delta phi by delta s limit, delta s tends to 0, delta phi by delta s is precisely what is d phi ds. Now if delta phi is 0 at every point, then its left hand limit as well as right hand limit will be 0. So d phi ds will come out to be 0 if we move tangentially. So evidently del phi dot the unit vector along which we are going, that is the tangent, is 0. Now grad phi is not 0. Grad phi is not 0. The tangential vector along which we are going is not 0. So what is 0? The cos component is 0. It's cos 90 degree, and that means the level surface and the direction of the grad operator acted upon the scalar function means grad phi. Direction of grad phi is perpendicular to the level surface. Okay. Now this fact has a considerable interest in physics, from which we get to know the direction of electric field, where the level surfaces are nothing but the equipotential surfaces on which potential V is equal to constant. You can take magnetic potential as well, gravitational potential as well, any potential. Any equipotential surface is the surface along which V is constant and here the parameter is V, and which concludes its directional derivative is maximum along normal to any point on the equipotential surface. That is, the electric field is along the maximum to the, means electric, what we write electric field equal to negative grad phi. Now when we are traversing normal to the surface at any point, level surface at any point, equipotential surface, we are actually traversing the direction of the electric field or the magnetic field, you can say, whichever field you are taking. Now the question comes, I have written it in the next slide, that some students think, why is it that electric field is perpendicular to the cylindrical Gaussian surface, means of if we take for an infinitely long charge distribution, why we take, first of all, the Gaussian surface we take to be cylindrical symmetry is there for a straight line. Now why is it so that the electric field points outward from the cylindrical surface? Why is it so? Because we have seen that the direction of grad phi is perpendicular to the level surface. Now what is the level surface along which v is constant? Along which surface v is constant? The Gaussian surface. The Gaussian surface v is constant, right? If you take a point charge, you draw a sphere and you try to traverse along the tangent to the path, the electric field line will necessarily penetrate the surface perpendicularly. So it is perpendicular to the surface. Why is it perpendicular? It is perpendicular, it is found out to be. Now we have ascribed to it the mathematical character E is equal to minus grad phi, because the electric field points outwards. That means as we go from the positive point charge towards infinity, the potential necessarily decreases, but the electric field is pointing in that direction. So if we have originally kept only E is equal to grad phi, then the problem that would have occurred is that the direction would have come out to be negative and it would point in the direction of the positive charge. But according to theory of electrostatics, a point charge is the charge from which electric field lines emanates. Electric field lines emanates from that particular point charge. So to preserve that particular character, we have put the ad hoc negative sign, so that when the potential will decrease, the electric field vector does not necessarily contain that negative sign, due to which its direction could have reversed. We are very intelligent, so we have put the negative sign so that its direction remains tangential and outwards. Similar is the case for this infinite line charge distribution. We take a Gaussian surface, cylindrical Gaussian surface, it has cylindrical symmetry, and hence the electric field penetrates perpendicular to the surface. Okay, now I will ask you to do it on your own, find out what you get, and obviously write it on the comment section. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe Mathasics for more such contents, and to contact me for any need you have, contact with this email. Thank you very much.